think dialogue brings out the best in humans, because dialogue asks us to be curious, and it asks us to listen, and it asks us to avoid feeling like we're some sort of center of the universe that defines what's normal.
How difficult is it to speak of dialogue and tolerance in an era in which rudeness, rigidity, and self-centeredness is so evident and even normalized? The probability of not being understood or being misunderstood is very high. But if peace is desired on earth, and if the world craves to see the face of peace that makes us warm inside, we must speak of tolerance and dialogue, sincerely, without hesitation.
Oh, there are lots of different definitions and lots of different reasons for dialogue. In the simplest definition, and the way I think it's most often employed here, certainly in this country, is learning more about each other, getting to know each other in a way that promotes understanding and appreciation rather than tension and critique.
I think the best way to cut through the prejudice is for people to get to know each other. That sounds so simplistic, but really every time you get to know someone who's a Muslim, and you get to know someone well enough so you can see, well, why do you do that? Or what does this mean to you? Or would you be offended if I said this? Then you get heart-to-heart conversation back. You're learning, but it's not like the classroom. You're learning through your heart.
I believe that Muslims need to dialogue with members of other faiths, not necessarily, not at all for the reason of trying to persuade or convince or convert, but simply to present Islam as it is. And as we know, the Quran says that Allah guides those who He will.
Some turn to a deaf ear to dialogue calls because they cannot understand, others because it clashes with their interests. But such terrible events as we live today show that people will need to pay attention to this call more and more with each day. There is no door that good representation and correct explanation cannot open, no heart that they cannot enter.
The concept of dialogue has evolved a great deal in recent years, and I think particularly in this country since 9/11 and the questions that people have about who Muslims are and what they believe and what it is that the Quran tells them.
Before 9/11, there was just a lot of ignorance about Muslims. And if people had any ideas, they were from films. I think after 9/11, people got much more interested in learning about Islam and started to reach out to get together with Muslims, and Muslims reached out to non-Muslims in the U.S., and there have been a lot of activities that have brought people together.
I think it's absolutely crucial that the dialogue go on, that it continue, and that more and more efforts toward dialogue be initiated. And I've seen that happen in, I would say, in the past couple of years. If there's any good, if one could say anything good happened after September 11th, I think a good positive development that has occurred is more and more people have realized how important dialogue and mutual understanding among religions really is.
again, even really educated people in Europe and in the United States are extremely ignorant about Islam, about all the variety of movements. And so that I think it's really important for myself and other people, people who are studying Islam, to become knowledgeable about all the Islamic movements and the contemporary manifestations of Islam for the purpose of educating. Because we are not all the same. Islam is not monolithic. And that's, you would think that that's a given, that anybody, Western or non-Western, would know that, and yet they don't. Because the other, those other people, those people from that other culture or that other religion, they always think that somehow you're all the same.
For me, the prejudices against Islam they exist, but I think they're getting less, actually, and less since 9/11 in the United States. Because, frankly, a lot of people in the United States want to learn about Islam now. They really are interested in it. They know they don't understand it, and they're trying to find ways to meet Muslims. They might not know what to ask, and they might come to the wrong conclusion right off the bat, but it isn't because they want to dislike you. It is simply a question of not quite knowing where to start.
Absolute evil aims to make mischief between communities and turn the world into a web of unhappiness. Each attack, each bombing, each bullet shot, and each radical statement made on the same line reinforce the borders of this division. Beyond all power-based measures taken so far, dialogue emerges as the most effective step against evil today. And dialogue means accepting everyone in their own position and establishing contact with people.
I think it's actually essential. Actually, I don't think that the clash of civilizations is not a reality. I think it's a label, but I don't think it's a reality whatsoever. I believe that in the core, when we look at religions, we see far more examples of cooperation.
I've never liked the clash of civilizations idea, and I think that is really too bad. And I think there are some ways in which it's a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. As we move along, people can say, oh, look, it's just as Huntington predicted. And I think that that should be countered at every turn. I don't think it's inevitable. I hope deeply that it is not inevitable. Convinced that if those of us who have a different picture of things can be active in our explanation and help people understand that that is not necessarily at all the way things are or going to be, it can make a difference.
You hear a lot today about this term, clash of civilizations, and I think it's such a dangerous term, and I think absolutely the only way something like that can be avoided is if people realize that there is no clash of civilizations. It will only occur if people, in their own minds, out of misunderstandings about each other, that can create this so-called clash of civilizations. And that's why the correct understanding of different cultures and different religious beliefs is...
Well, the UU Muslim Dialogue Group gave me a chance to witness Muslims at prayer and to have it explained to me what it was that the prayer was saying in Arabic and what it meant to be engaged in prayer. It also gave us a chance to share an iftar together, which we now do on an annual basis. I'd never been invited into Muslim prayer or Muslim holidays or special ceremonies before, and so it felt to me like a privilege. I felt as if I really was being, as if the Boston Dialogue Muslims were widening the circle a little bit, and they were saying, hey, come on in, you can do this with us. And that meant a lot.